Hey everybody, Vivian here with a very special video tutorial for you today. It's going to feature Pop and Cuts dies designed by Karen Berniston and produced by Sizzix. These dies are steel rule dies, just like the Biggs dies, and you know how much I love the Biggs dies because they're just so sturdy. Anyway, I wrote a little bit about it on my blog post at the PaperHaus Magazine website, and I made this video to coordinate with that blog post. The website is www.thepaperhaus.com, and that's Haus. If you're interested in seeing how I made this fabric flower, check out my last tutorial that I made for them on their channel, and that's their channel on YouTube, which is PaperHaus Blog, Haus. Okay, these papers are from Teresa Collins's Now and Then line, and those letters were stamped with a Hampton Art 7 Gypsies alphabet stamp set that is really great to have if you are at all interested in vintage or shabby or grungy styles, because I think they just have just the right amount of distress in the font. And so here I'm opening the card and you can see the pop and cut. So there's one pass through your die cut machine for the exterior piece and one pass for that interior pop-up piece, and that's it. That's all you need to do to create this pop-up card and this interesting little surprise of dimension when the card is opened. That little inset piece is a Sizzlet as well as the flourish, and those come in a set that coordinates with this particular pop-up insert. That's a Hampton Art stamp. I distressed it along the edges using, I believe, tea dye distressing from Tim Holtz. And here you have a little panel so that you can write a message to your recipient. And that was adhered additionally with some washi tape from the same Teresa Collins collection. Sometimes people choose to embellish that upper part of the interior. I didn't for this one. So let me show you what a pop and cut looks like. The base die is what you'll be using with all the different pop and cut inserts. Each insert will give you a different design on the pop-up on the interior of your card. This is card horizontal A2 with circle label 3D pop-up. And as you can see, it's got that soft underside. And it's a steel rule die. So it's very sturdy and you can use and abuse it for a really long time. All of my steel rule dies from Sizzix I've used a lot, and they're still great. So I think they're just a really great investment for any crafter. If you decide that you like these pop and cuts dies, once you buy that starter set, then you can just get the inserts, the pop-up inserts that you like when you like. This is a thanks insert, and today we're going to be making a thank you card. This particular insert is a great one to start with once you've got your starter set, because you can never have too many thank you cards. I think it's a really special way to let someone know how grateful you are for a gift or a gesture that they've shown you. So I've got a long extended acrylic plate on the bottom. I've got my die, and I'm just going to trim that piece of paper so that it doesn't get, so that it will roll through nicely through my big shot. That's the back of the insert, and that's the soft front. If you'll notice, there are little tick marks on the die, and there are little tick marks on the insert. You want to line those up, and if they're lined up, you know that you've got your base die and your insert arranged correctly. So this is a text die, and because of the way it's set up, you're going to want to turn that beautiful purple piece of paper upside down. So the part that you want to see, you're going to place upside down. Both those papers are from the Old World stack from DCWV, and that stack has a lot of beautiful damask, sort of vintage, very deep, subtle patterns that I'm excited to use for this card. So I've got that piece of paper on top of there, the side that I want to look at, face down, and another acrylic plate on top of that. Because there are so many intricate cuts in the word thanks on this die, I'm going to add an extra piece of paper on top of the area where that thanks will be. I find that that little bit of extra pressure will help me get a cleaner cut. If you had a simple shape like a heart or a circle, I probably wouldn't do that. But with all of my dies, I have another snowflake die from a different manufacturer that's very intricate. I like to use those extra pieces to create a really clean. It's a little too wide. I don't think that'll be a problem. Okay, so here's the cut. Just pull that apart. Okay, and let me just pop out the little pieces. So the great thing about these pop-in cuts is that I think usually us crafty folks are not real good with the technical stuff or mathematical stuff or having to calculate stuff. At least I'm not. And if I were to try to make this pop-and cut card myself without the assistance of this die, I would be in serious trouble. And I wouldn't enjoy myself either. So this takes all that work out of it. When you send it through the die cut machine, it scores where it needs to be scored. And there's also a little bit of a notch here where the card is going to fold. And there's a score here too. So you stick your fingers in between, behind, and just gently fold that part. Fold this part. Fold where your card will fold. And fold at the base of the word. Okay. Oops, here's the cat. Can you see the cat here? Oh my gosh. This is my husband's cat, Panic. And do you want to come here? Let me show you. You want to look up here? Hello, Panic. His name is Panic. I don't think that's very feng shui, but that is the name. And he lets you know when he wants something. Loud and clear. Okay, so this is going to be the interior of your card. And this is my exterior. I'm just going to fold that in half. I would normally score this, but I don't have my scoreboard right in front of me. Okay. And so you're going to use your tape runner to adhere these two pieces together. And so you'll have the exterior and the interior. I'll also cut out a little Sizzix and start embellishing the exterior and interior of my card in different ways, and I'll share that with you in just a second. Okay, so before I put away my Sizzix Big Shot, I just want to cut out a couple of Sizzlits. This is comes from a set of Sizzlits that coordinates with the thank you set. So this one is the word thanks, and all the letters fit inside the letters that are already in your pop and cut. So I'm going to cut that out with a creamy color that comes from the same Old World stack. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it yet, but I also have this bird, this cute little bird that comes from the same Sizzix set. I don't think I'm going to use this because I have a piece of damask paper from my Mind's Eye that I think I'm going to use in sort of a rusty orange that I think will look great with the maroon interior. But they also have this gorgeous damask shape. Maybe I will use it. I'm looking at it and thinking I really want to use it. Maybe I'll use it on the exterior. So I'm going to send that through my machine. So for the Sizzix, you're going to use your multi-purpose flat platform. It sort of visually shows you what tab needs to be opened for whatever kind of die or embossing folder you're going to use. Wafer-thin dies just go on top. Here you have a picture of Sizzix. So Sizzix go on tab 1. And gonna stick this on top here and knock out both in one pass. And I've got my letters, and I've got my bird. I'm not going to cut them out right now because I want to keep them all intact and not lose any pieces. So from here on in, I'm going to speed up the video so you can see this start to finish in a timely fashion. Here are the two pieces put together. In just a second, I'm going to adhere them together. But as you can see, these are single-sided papers. If you use double-sided papers, it's very easy and quick to get that little pop of color when you open your pop-up. Since I don't have that for these papers, I'm going to add a few little extra embellishments. I have some my Mind's Eye layering paper, and I'm going to put that in that little hole and also on the interior of my card. I cut out this sheet using the same die just so I don't have to fussy cut the edges. And that's the top part, and the one in my left hand is the part that's going to go behind the thanks. I use the Scotch ATG gun quite a bit as my primary tape runner. I use it with permanent adhesive, which really is quite permanent. So I want to have a good tight bind. I want to have a card that's going to be able to sit on a mantle, be able to be looked at for years to come, because I do spend energy and time on these projects, and I want them to be long lasting. But because it is such a tight bind and it dries rather quickly, I want to make sure that I get it in exactly the same position, exactly the correct position before I actually push down between the two layers. So there you go, and you've got your little pop of orange behind the thanks. I always like to either trim with some scissors along the edge or sand if there's just a little bit of variation between the two edges. And I'm going to adhere that top piece. I think these colors together have quite a bohemian feeling to them. I haven't really used them together before, but I thought I'd take a little chance and see what happened. I ended up liking it quite a bit. So these are my letters that I cut out using my Sizzix Sizzlet. And I've got some Tombow Mono Multi-Glue that's got a nice fine tip. Sometimes, because I'm not extremely skilled with that glue dispenser, I get a little bit more than I want, and I don't want to get any glue bubbles coming out the sides when I press that piece of paper down. So I just rub it onto another piece. I rub it onto the next piece that I'm going to adhere. Because this is sort of a vintage project, I decided to age all the edges using a blending tool and some distress ink from Tim Holtz in Vintage Photo. The distress inks that I tend to go back to again and again and again are my tea dye distress ink, my Vintage Photo distress ink. And since I've been working recently, I don't know if you've seen any of my more recent projects on my blog, which is contadinak.wordpress.com. I've been working a lot with a very simple color scheme, primarily just cream. So check out my blog and scroll down to some of the posts, cream or white. When I use cream and I just stay monochromatic, I use a lot of the Tim Holtz distress ink in antique linen, which I really hadn't dug into until I started this cream craze. I've got a little strip of that green that I'm going to use on my card. I also have some of this creamy color that's from the same Old World DCWB stack. I'm using a Martha Stewart Edger punch on it. Actually, it's a punch around the page set. I just picked it up. It was like a Black Friday deal. Turned out that Saturday there were even better deals, so I was kind of annoyed about that. But this is a vintage doily punch, and it's part of a punch around the page set. I ordered it direct from the Martha Stewart website for their Black Friday deal, and I'm pretty happy with all of her punches. I've used a few of them non-stop and they haven't failed me. This one is just a little bit pointier than the doily lace, which I use a lot as well. They're great for vintage projects or shabby chic projects. And I'm very carefully just aging using the Vintage Photo, just aging the very, very edges. And I'm going to place that as you see here. So I trimmed that piece to size, and I'm just wrapping it with a bit of olive seam binding from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I'm really excited about seam binding these days because it's really malleable. It doesn't have the stiffness of satin or grosgrain. So it's got just a nice fluffy type of feeling to it. It's very easy to make a pretty bow. And it doesn't add really any thickness to your project. And sometimes that's a consideration, especially when you're making cards. So I adhered that to my card just above where it becomes dimensional. And I ended up really liking this color combination. I also used the same vintage doily Martha Stewart punch to cut out another piece that's going to be an area where you can write a little message, a little note of thanks to your recipient. And I distressed all of those edges as well. After doing just a little bit more trimming and sanding, my card, at least the interior, was finished. And I was really pleased with that combination of colors. I had never used that before. Sometimes with these Pop and Cuts dies, I experiment with keeping the interior, limiting the interior to stamping only and making the exterior really dimensional. This card's a little combination of the two. I have this Sizzix Fancy Frames die that is also designed by Karen Burniston that I've been using a lot. I'm going to use that to embellish the exterior of my card. And I'll show you a little still of another card that I made using this die, this frame die, along with corrugate. And just using corrugate and a little bit of distress to create a really elegant, sort of luxurious looking frame that's made out of corrugate. So I'm actually going to use corrugate again for that smaller interior piece, so I can raise that up on top of the purple piece. This is just a piece of corrugate that I cut off of a box that I had received in the mail. And this is one of the great things about these steel rule dies from Sizzix, is that they will cut through so much stuff. I use it on corrugate, I use it on chipboard, I could use it on felt also. I have used it on felt. Here I've got a piece of corrugate and a piece of my cream cardstock that are cut to exactly the same dimensions. And I never had to pick up my scissors. I know it's pretty elementary and basic, and you're saying, yeah, that's what dies do, but I still can't get over how great that is. So I adhered them together using some more Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. That's going to go on top of the larger purple piece. Both of these pieces have also been distressed with the vintage photo distress ink. And that's going to go centered and a little bit high on the front of my card. I just want to quickly cut to, as promised, a photo of another card I made for another design team, which uses the same frame fancy die from Sizzix, just with the corrugate. And I just loved the way it turned out with that autumn color scheme. This card also has some handmade stick pins that seem pretty self-explanatory, I think. If not, I'll make another video tutorial for those upon request. So I'm using a butterfly punch from Martha Stewart, punch around the page, and I distressed all those pieces. I'm going to use those along with some Bitty Blossoms dies from Spellbinders. They make these really pretty roses in 3 different sizes in the set. And I'm going to use those along with leaves from a leaf punch that's also Martha Stewart. And I don't know if you can see on the left side of the screen, there's a heart that I punched, a really curvaceous, voluptuous heart from, I believe it's Fiskars. So I distressed those leaves and I curled them with my bone folder. And I just took a little bit of time to arrange those pieces on my card front in a way that pleased me. It ended up being on a somewhat loose diagonal. And I tried to cluster them in a way that felt natural. So this was the final arrangement. I just put that voluptuous heart on a pop dot and set that into the center of my frame. There were little bits of hot glue that were left that I just picked off with my scissors. And added a few larger pearls, self-adhesive pearls. This is in a champagne color from Recollections at Michael's. And there you have it. That's the card. We have a pretty dimensional exterior as well as a very easy dimensional interior with a bohemian color scheme. A great way to say thank you to somebody special this holiday season and throughout the year. That particular insert, I think, would be very useful to have for card making throughout the year. Thanks so much for watching here today. I really appreciate your viewership. If you get a chance, come visit me on my blog, contadinak.wordpress.com. I'll also provide a link as soon as it's ready for the blog post at PaperHaus Magazine that's associated with this video. If you're able to get over to the PaperHaus website, definitely check out their winter issue. It's got holiday projects. It's also got Valentine's Day projects. A whole bunch of inspiration, beautiful, organized, stylish presentation, and really talented, well-known artists featured in this issue. I also make a tiny little appearance with a winter tag that I made. If you follow me here, my channel's Contadina K, you might have seen the video for it already. There's a video tutorial for my snow and twigs tag. So maybe you'll see it while you're browsing through the magazine. Thanks again and see you next time. Bye.